Thank you so much for being here with me today, Derek. Well, let's start out with the history of your label as a whole, and if you
Sure,
could just
sure.
kind of talk about how it started, what got you to decide to start a label in the first place, and what your goals are with it, and things like this.
Cool. Um, wow. So, I mean, probably the same story as pretty much anybody in this kind of, underground scene. As far as starting a label, you start a label because you want to release your own stuff. Um, and that was not the original idea. Although I was originally, I did release like a self-release, a cassette, and then another cassette, the cassette under the name December, and then wasn't going to mess around with labels anymore because that December cassette got, I sent one to Chris Walton of Endura, who's now doing Ten Horn Beast, actually. And
Nice.
yeah, he ended up making a dub of it and sending it to Tiziana Stupia at Misanthropy Records, who, of course, I knew from buying, stuff. And out of nowhere, I get an email from her saying, "This is Tiziana. I really like your tape. Do you want to be on Misanthropy?" And I was just like, oh. So I thought that was the path. And it sort of was, but what ended up happening is that a bunch of things happened. The name December changed to Dream into Dust, or rather the previous project ended, new project started. And at the same time, when I was saying, hey, I really want to let everybody know this new project is starting. I have an EP of 4 songs. Can we get it out right now? And she goes, yeah, about that. So the Endura album that we've been trying to release for 5 years is ready to go now. We also now have the first album of Burzum in prison. And yeah, and we just signed Mayhem. We're releasing all those 3 in June. So we don't have any money or time or anything. Yeah. So I was like, well,
Sorry, we
shit.
just picked up black metal legends. We're gonna have to put you on hold.
Basically, it's like, oh, okay. So I was like, shit, I guess I got to do this myself. So then, boom, Chthonic Streams was born to release the No Man's Land 4-track EP. And initially it was just that. The second release was also Dream into Dust. It was a Prison for Oneself. That was a similar thing where it's like there was a time constraint because that year was the 30th anniversary of one of my favorite TV shows, The Prisoner, and I wanted to release something on that date. So that's it. I had to do it myself. And then after that, it just kind of kept going. I put out a compilation, the sort of commemorating the turn of the millennium, which then got picked up for distribution here by Middle Pillar and in Europe by World Serpent. And so I was just like, all right, cool. I'll just keep doing this for whatever. But I wasn't really focusing on releasing other people's stuff. And for a while, it was also a distro, because what happens is people start saying, oh, you're a label, and then you start getting tons of contacts, mostly because of Misanthropy was pushing Dream into Dust. Then when we finally did come out on their label, then a million metal bands would write to Chthonic Streams, hi, we have edited our first CD and you must now, we will help us to be brutal in the world. And I'm like, dude, I really love metal, but like, that's not what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So it really, I was doing distro for a while because like Dark Vinyl was saying, we want you to carry our stuff. And you do that thing where you release a bunch of stuff and then another label releases a bunch of stuff. And then they say, hey, you want to trade? And then you sell each other's things. And, that's okay. But, then just, it can take a long time, for underground stuff to sell. So instead of sitting there looking at your stuff taking a long time to sell, you're looking at other people's stuff taking a long time to sell. But eventually it did all sell. I was selling some cool stuff. That was nice. But then it really became more of a thing of like, anything that I'm connected with, I will put it out or distribute it. So I did the cover. I'm a graphic designer, artist as well. Did the cover for a Sol Invictus compilation, which was actually originally done because it was supposed to be their first American tour, which never happened.
Yeah.
So I got a whole stack of CDs as payment for my design. I don't really do that anymore because money is a little more important than having copies to sell of stuff. But at the time, it was like, yeah, sure, I'll do that. So I was selling Sol Invictus CD and stuff like that, And that went on for a while. Like I was on the Majesty CD, so I got a stack of those, things like that. It really wasn't until, I don't know, like sometime in the past 10 years, I started saying, let me actually release other people's stuff. It is sort of a... it still kind of comes back to me, especially like with this newest batch that's come out now. I'm generally involved in at least some aspect of it. There's very few releases that I haven't at least done the artwork or I've done mixing or something like that. To me, it's just part of like, if you're the label, you're overseeing the overall quality and the overall sound of it. So I want to be directly involved. And also because I'm an artist, I want to be, I want to have a hands-on approach to it, So this one's a little out of control because I literally mixed all 3 of the albums and did the artwork for all 3 of the albums. Although the Solipsis album, the artwork is actually by James Miller, but I'm getting ahead of myself. So that's pretty much the general history and raison d'etre of the label.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing. I was very mainstream back when all of this started that you're talking about, so it sort of catches me up a lot too on things like really crappy mainstream metal sort of stuff I was listening to back in the early 2000s. So it's just like,
yeah, no, I heard that. I heard that in another interview you did on there. It's just funny, people, just it's whatever's out at the time. A lot of us have those musical skeletons in our closets of stuff that, But me also, I still listen to some of it. I've got, you can't see all of my CDs back there, but it's like, I've got Erasure. Erasure's great.
Yeah.
So, I don't care.
Yeah,
Madonna.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think...
But I got Madonna and then I got Merzbow,
Yes.
So.
Yeah, well, yeah, speaking of Madonna, my current guilty pleasure is Grimes.
Yeah, I'm not going to touch that one.
That's fine.
There's issues surrounding that.
Oh, I'm sure.
Extra musical issues. So anyway.
Yeah. Well.
No hate.
Yeah. There's no point in justifying the guilty pleasures.
No, it is what it is.
Yeah, so you mentioned one of the first things that you did was a compilation, and I wanted to touch on your most recent compilation and whatever you would like to say about that sort of situation and why you decided to do this compilation and, how all that's going.
Oh, I'm sorry, which compilation are you talking about now?
The Ukraine one.
Or the Ukraine.
Yeah.
Oh, so, all right. So I didn't actually produce the Ukraine compilation or either of the ones that are out there. So there is a Compactor track on a compilation released by CrunchPod.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well,
Yeah,
I saw it up on your Bandcamp, so I remember you promoting it a lot, so I sort of figured it was yours, but Okay.
Sure, but then there's also another one. There's another one that's released by Component Recordings, which is Robert Galbraith of Snow Beasts. That's his label, and that comp has just, I mean, both compilations are awesome, and both of them have like a ridiculous number of tracks on them. But Roberts has just gone completely, global, insanely, as has and so much of it. I mean, there's a former member of Kraftwerk on it. It's incredible. It's really, really good, and it's still up. You can still get that. If I was smart, I would put, I should have like a browser open here to to pull up stuff and throw it into the chat. But yeah, that's so Roberts. Let's see, Component Recordings.
Yeah, well, I think that's great that people are doing that, because it's certainly a worthy cause, to say the least.
Yeah. So the Component compilation is called Four Piece Against War. Who is not? And it's got like a crazy, it's like 200 tracks. And you can pay more than what it's offered for, which is, I think, something stupid low. Which I don't know what it is, because I bought it, so it's not showing the price.
Yeah.
But it's probably something crazy, like $10 or $20. But I'm dropping the link to that
Awesome.
in the chat now. And then there's the Crunch Pod, which has a Compactor track on it, and it's called "In the Throes of Democracy," benefit compilation for Ukraine, which I am also throwing into the chat now. There's probably a bunch of others, but I found out about the Crunch Pod one first. Actually, I found out about it thanks to somebody who is in the chat right now, Dark Ceremony. Big ups, thank you. That's DJ Synaptic. So yeah, I heard that they were putting something together, and so I said, oh, cool. Let me see if there's a way that a Compactor track can get on that, and there was, and there is. So it's pretty cool. But I have done, speaking of compilations, since we're already doing this,
Yeah.
I've done a bunch of compilations. So the first Chthonic Streams compilation that we were talking about is called On the Brink of Infinity. That came out in like October or November 1999. The whole point of it was like, oh my God, the Y2K bug, or just the end of the world, everything's going to change, but also trying to look at it in a positive way, to say it's a cycle. If this is the end of everything, then it's because we're about to have the beginning of everything all over again. That was my attempt. So that was the whole CD was structured with other people's tracks that were exclusive, in order to try to tell that kind of a story, where it starts out as birth and then goes through different, themes and feelings, and then ends with literally this is the end of the universe, and then has a little, birth, rebirth at the end. And that sold out ridiculously quickly. So I'm really proud of that. But more recently, actually, what sort of kicked off Chthonic Streams on the internet, in terms of the Bandcamp page, was doing No DAPL Noise, which is a compilation that is to benefit. It was put together in late 2016 to benefit the Standing Rock Sioux tribe, because this is
Nice.
when they were attacking, not they were attacking the
they were their land was being attacked.
Yeah, exactly. The pipeline was
on an environmental level.
Yeah, it was really messed up, and a lot of people got really hurt in that. It was screwed up. So while that particular situation is, it sort of got better, and then they keep trying to sneakily do stuff while nobody's looking, and then people say, hey, pay attention again, they're trying to do this again. But in the meantime, that ended up switching over. Basically, it'll be on sale forever, and I'll drop that in the chat now too. but it's always going to be some kind of Indigenous First Nations charity that the money goes to. That was a 3-hour compilation of 50 tracks, all noise stuff, that came together in like a week. So that ended up raising like $1,400 at once for that.
Nice.
And then when COVID hit, the beneficiary switched over to a tribe a couple tribes that were specifically, somebody set up a GoFundMe for some tribes who needed help specifically because they were hit with COVID. So anytime somebody buys that compilation, as soon as the money comes in, I check to see if the charity that it was set to is still, accepting money. It's still going. Still, the need is still there. If not, I pick another one. Usually, I ask somebody who's more knowledgeable than me about Native issues. I am part, Cherokee and Arawak, but not to such a significant amount that I have my finger on the pulse or anything.
Yeah.
So usually I hit up Alex Kmet, and he's very into, keeping track of what's going on, usually bad shit that's going on. And
yeah, there's never any shortage of that.
Yeah, unfortunately. Then a couple years ago, a friend of a bunch of ours, Casey Grabowski, who was in a synth duo called Nearest and has been in multiple other great projects. I think Lee is on here. Yeah, I see Annihilus is in the chat. I'm sure Lee could bring up and remember all of the different Casey project names. Anyway, he unfortunately had stage 4 pancreatic cancer, and so I came up with a compilation to benefit him, and that was like 20 tracks, all of people who knew him. Unfortunately, Casey didn't make it, but we're talking about a situation where he had a very, very grave, that's intense.
Mm-hmm.
To have stage 4 and the pancreas that's like deep and internal and, long gone. But he fought really hard, and beyond when probably most people would have given up, he survived for another 2 years. And I was still giving the money to his widow, Michelle, until recently. Then it switched over to other cancer charities. And nice. Unfortunately, another one came up, ended up doing the Beside You in Strength compilation for Thomas Garrison of Control, which has also done quite well and raised a bunch of money for him. Fortunately, I'm not going to speak specifically about his prognosis or anything like that, but he started off in a much better possibility and situation, I think, than Casey did. So, knock wood, we have hope, and we're pulling for Thomas constantly, and that is still out there. I'm going to drop, I totally forgot to drop the Casey compilation in the chat. My bad.
No, that's awesome. You're on top of this, man.
Yeah. Hey, I learned from you. I watched these shows before, so I'm like, yeah, that would be a smart thing if I was doing that.
Yeah, well, and you also know then from watching me that people have to constantly keep reminding me to do it.
No problem. So that's that with the compilations for now. It's exhausting to do, but it's rewarding if it's for a for a good cause, something like this. Yeah. Someday maybe there'll be a reason to do a compilation that isn't something horrible and dark. Yeah. Just like, hey, these are all the artists who are on or have been on the on the label, and you should check it all out. And because that's generally what I like compilations for. I've gotten, I said I like metal, and it's true. And I got into like really dark and heavy. Like what got me into like death metal, doom metal, and black metal was stumbling across the Corporate Death compilation by Relapse.
Nice.
like years ago.
Yeah.
Like I would never heard of like almost anybody on that. You know, and that, through getting that, I got into Dead World. I got into Mortician. I hated Mortician at first. I was like, I don't know what that's terrible. And then like I kept listening to the whole compilation and going, okay, I like that. Who is this? And I realized that all of the tracks that I thought were awful, which I now liked, were Mortician.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, that's been a dynamic for me throughout my life too, that some of the music that I initially hated the most is the things that have resonated with me the longest over the years. It's like I don't know. There's something to be said about that, about disliking something and then giving it another second, third, fourth chance until it really clicks with you. Or you just decide, no, this is trash.
There's even albums that I've totally had and listened to and liked, and then I decided, I'm tired of this. I don't need this anymore, and I need the money. And then years later, I go, what the hell did I do? Like I sold, and now this is right on brand for this. This has happened many times, but on brand for this channel, I sold the first Aghast CD.
Oh,
the
wow.
only Aghast CD. What the hell was I thinking? I ended up, bizarrely, getting like one of the remasters, and even those are hard to find.
Mm-hmm.
And like I was like, I got to listen to this. I got to listen to this since it's been sitting out for months. And then, you know, tragically, you know, one of the members actually, who was a former label mate at Misanthropy Elfenblut, you know, was killed in, I believe it was a terrorist attack.
Yeah, that was disastrous. That was
just how random that, you know, to us, that somebody that we know would be at a place.
It's such a small scene, and it's just like, I remember that day well, where it's just like the whole community just sort of went crazy about it, because it's like, of all of the people on this planet.
Yeah, it's so messed up. But yeah, that Aghast album is incredible. And then later she did Hagalah's Rune Dance, which was on Elfenblut. Because originally Dream Into Dust, well, December was going to be on Misanthropy. And then Tiziana decided, you know, let's do a separate label for the non-metal.
Yeah.
You know, and decided to... you know, and that was cool, because then she did she put out the European repress of Blood Axis, the first Blood Axis album. Trying to go there now and see what else was on the label. But really, I mean, it was all handled through the same office. You know, it's just that it had different catalog numbers. So it's like, it was Misanthropy / Elfenblut. Here we go.
Yeah, it makes sense when things get split up like that, but I think it's kept the sort of this whole ambient scene continuing to stay underground. You know, it's like, if they would have just kind of stuck it all together at first, I feel like there'd be millions of people that were following this stuff.
Yeah, no, I mean, I feel of two minds about that myself, because, you know, as a musician who does several different projects, you know, there are people who argue, why would you do a different name? This is all just marketing. This is for show. This is, you know, and I'm saying, no, there is a logical and an artistic reason why you split things up through different names.
Yeah.
You know, things sound different. There are people who are huge Murder of Angels fans. For a while, that was Murder of Angels may still be the best-selling project I've been a part of, more than either of the projects of the people who were involved.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but to me, it was like, well, Dream Into Dust is my main thing, but, you know, whatever people like, you know, that's good, you know. So if people go, where's the new Murder of Angels, and nothing happens, and you go, hey, but there's new Dream Into Dust, and then they just go, okay, all right, that's fine. And then sometimes it's the other way around. Some people have said, a Murder of Angels is too scary for me. What is this? But, you know, you've heard that kind of thing level. Anything like the super dark ambient stuff, people are just like, this is scary. And I'm like, this is relaxing to me. What are you
Yeah, well,
talking
I
about?
mean, I
How are you?
guess that's like in a way one of the best compliments you can get, I guess, for a project like that.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, it's I mean, all of this sort of stuff is relaxing for me too. Somebody listens to a dark ambient album or watches a horror movie and they're like, "Oh, I'm terrified," and I'm like, "I wish." It's been so long since something has terrified me.
Oh, looks like
Yes,
Apocryphos
Robert from
is in the
Apocryphos is
chat.
hanging out. What's up, Robert?
Hey, Robert.
And yeah, there's a bunch of people in
Yeah,
here today.
speaking of royalty, dark ambient royalty this time.
Yes.
Not metal royalty. Yes, Lee likes to out me. Derek doesn't like horror. I like some horror. I'm not into like, horror, like very horror, bloody
Well,
horror.
Okay, so what's the
Gory
kind of horror that you do like then?
Like more like thriller stuff, psychological horror, whatever. But I did like the horror movie that there was a time where I went up to, I think, rehearse or record with Lee for Theologian or something. Or maybe this was actually, I think it was because it was the night before we were going on tour together, our brief tour, and we saw The Void because
Oh yeah.
Lee and Gretchen had tickets to The Void. I really liked The Void. It was really good. Also, it used practical effects, and I was like, well, yeah, that's another thing. That's great, because like The Thing. I mean, is The Thing a horror movie or a science fiction movie? Is Alien a horror movie or a science fiction movie?
Oh, The Thing is so good.
Usually, you'll suck me in if it's a science fiction movie.
Yeah.
Like God, what was that? And I wouldn't call this a horror movie, but like, what was that movie? Oh, Prospect. I loved Prospect. But there's some brutal shit that happens in there. You're just like, whoa.
I don't think I've seen Prospect.
I didn't even realize Lustmord's music was in that movie. But yeah, it was a good movie. Oh, and Get Out. Get Out is like,
Oh yeah, Get Out is awesome.
Incredible. And I didn't even realize that was like kind of a horror movie or connected to horror in any way. It was just like, the person I was dating at the time was like, we gotta go see Get Out. I'm like, what? And they're like, oh, it's by Jordan Peele. I'm like, Jordan Peele, Key and Peele? You're kidding me? Movie,
Yeah,
like
well, apparently horror's been his plan from the beginning. I think if I remember correctly.
If you watch Key and Peele, there's numerous horror movie references. There's absolutely hilarious horror movie spoof sketches on that that totally lead up to this. It's like, yes, how can we combine horror with racial and social commentary? And it's like, boom, you got it. Like, that movie was brilliant. Yeah. I mean, in other ways, I feel like, so what's kind of horrifying in a way. Do you ever see Being John Malkovich?
Yes. That's
certainly
great.
Certainly the way that ends is like pretty fucking horrifying. I think I haven't seen that movie again because I was just like, ugh, just something about like just you're trapped in a certain way. I'm just like, yeah, okay, that's enough.
Yeah, and Sectarium just mentioned Hereditary and Midsummer. Those are definitely two of my recent favorites. I don't know if you've seen either of those.
I've heard of. Yeah, a lot of people who like all this kind of music name check those a lot too, so that's cool. And I get horror movie soundtracks too, the stuff that, or maybe they're not horror exactly. I can't even remember, but I like soundtrack music a lot. I don't have a huge amount of them anymore, but let's. Oh God, what's one of them? It's that '90s movie with Winona Ryder, and God, I can't even think of what it is.
Is there a '90s movie without Winona Ryder? Yes, Beyond the Black Rainbow. No, I'm kidding. Winona Ryder's awesome.
I would have to go to IMDb, and I'm not gonna, remember what this is. Oh, Lost something. I can't remember. But I love The Dead Zone, but I don't know if you consider that horror. I mean, The Dead Zone is to me like my favorite Stephen King adaptation. But these are of a different kind of horror. Like I'm saying, if you hear, I think it's clear from the names that I'm throwing out. This is different than
So you
than
don't
what
like
is
Friday the 13th?
yeah, that's just like that's not my thing. It's never been my thing.
Yeah.
Like, and Psycho, like I've never seen Psycho. Um,
Yeah.
just like jump scares and sudden blood, stuff like that.
Well, you
Like I've
might
been
not
at
you might not mind Psycho as much as you think, because that one's Alfred Hitchcock movie, so that's sort of more in your outer limits kind of direction.
yeah,
But still,
yeah, yeah,
it's not nearly as much like a Friday the 13th slasher type of thing as it's sort of sold as being.
yeah. And Dark Ceremony did get it right. Just said in the chat, Lost Souls is the Winona Ryder movie. That was the sort of oh no, I know Psycho is devoid of gore, Lee, but like I think the only scene I had ever seen from Psycho, well, I had heard about the shower scene.
Yeah.
My mother still says like that she saw that movie and then she didn't shower for a year. Which is not a good. It's like, this is setting myself up for the dozens here. Your mama stinks so much she ain't. But I'm assuming she took a sponge bath or got in the tub or something, but she did not get in the shower for a year. But there was a TV show where people would reenact scenes from movies, and people reenacted the scene from Psycho where the woman goes upstairs and looks for Mrs. Bates and puts her hand on her shoulder and turns her around, and it's like she's all dead and desiccated. And me seeing that as a little kid, I was like, what the fuck was that? So, it's like, I of course I could see it now. It would be fine. I don't, but, that may have, I don't know what Lee's talking about. It's downstairs. Yes, it's the things that you don't see. That's true. And that's one of the reasons why I very much love Alien. Alien is just it's one of my favorite movies ever. I have it on DVD. I love the sequel too, but the first is just.
Yeah, I always watched the sequel. Was always the one that I saw. I think we had the sequel on VHS, but I'm not nearly as familiar with the original. But yeah, I mean, there's.
It's so amazing. I mean, the first two are like very, very different films because the second one.
That's what I was going to say. The third one is acceptable at the very least.
Yeah, well, you're going to get arguments in the chat now. But I actually, you know what? I wasn't thrilled with the third one until I saw Fincher's director's cut. It is much, much improved over the theatrical edit.
I should check that out.
And there's a lot of things about it that are good. So it's good, and it's worthy, but it's very different, and it's very monochromatic, and I mean that in terms of not just the whole movie is basically that brown rust color, but also like the tone and the vibe of it is very like it's the same thing over and over again. So because they're in a prison colony and they're trapped in one place. So that's that color. The second movie is very blue, and the first movie is just black. Everything is, shooting with like one light, and then like you don't see anything. And that's what's fucking terrifying about it. And then you see the alien, you only see a tiny bit of it. You just see the teeth coming out of its other teeth. And you're like, what the fuck? That's so, for some reason that never bothered me. It was just like, that's so cool. It wouldn't be cool if I was facing a xenomorph, but it's a great design. And I loved H.R. Giger. All of his art, his designs are incredible.
Yeah. So one more thing I want to name drop here and see if you or anybody else has checked out, and then we'll get back to your music. The new Redux of Apocalypse Now, have you seen that, or has anybody else? They added a whole 45 minutes into the film.
That is a lot.
Yes.
Apocalypse Now is one of those movies I was not interested in seeing. Then I was, and then I just have forgotten for years. And I would like to see it.
Oh my God, the Redux is incredible. I watched it 2 weeks ago. Oh my God, it really holds a tone throughout the movie that is just really just. It's an incredibly unsettling film. in like a million
Yeah.
different ways. And
No,
the
I would
Hearts of
love to see
Darkness
that.
documentary about it is also incredible. If
Yes, I saw that. I've heard of that one too.
I found
Like,
out about that from Community.
and this is, of course, got to throw out a shout out to, and I know I'm going to mispronounce it, like everybody does. Something like it's not Vangelis. It's like Vangelis or something like that. But we know who we're talking about, because I have the best DVD version of Blade Runner, and I still haven't watched it. Like I'm gonna watch it one of these days. But I've seen both versions, or at least I've seen two previous versions. I saw the one with the voiceover, and I saw the one with no voiceover. So yeah, this is supposedly like the best one. Like I looked it up, and it was like, I know I want this movie on DVD, but like which version? And this is supposedly the one.
Yeah, I think I saw that version on Amazon like a month or so ago. I saw the original. Well, I've seen them both before, but I watched both of the Blade Runner movies like within the last couple weeks. So.
Yeah. No, Blade Runner is awesome, and no, I'd love to see Apocalypse Now, and I will see the Redux then. That now it's been decided for me, and just to quickly back over, you know what, we're gonna get into a whole other thing. We'll talk about that another time. I have opinions about the different versions of the second Alien movie, the Aliens. So, but we're not going to get into that here, because we're here to talk more about music. We've talked about movies a lot, although I love
Yeah, no worries.
Right, Vangelis, yes. Dorian from Northumbria said, yeah, it is a hard G. It's not soft G. So yeah, it's like that. It's GIF, not GIF.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm a design nerd, so that's of great importance to me as well.
Yeah, no, I'm a GIF guy. Sorry.
Oh man, that's it. This interview's over. Oh man, yeah, we can't talk about this.
Broke my heart a little bit when I found out. But yeah, so back to business. Yeah, well, just tell us a little bit about the recent albums then on the label. Just kind of lay out what they're about, because like as you said, you sort of have had a lot more input on these than you had in other recent projects, and it's all really good stuff. Before everything failed, I played a little bit of the Etern, and oh man, I really love that. I'm a sucker for good dungeon synths, so I was really excited about that one.
Yeah, actually, and since you brought that up and you played it, I will now drop that into the chat too, so people can listen in the background if they missed the intro or for any reason, because you should hear it. And this is a pretty good segue from talking about movies, because this is one of those, dungeon synth as well as dark ambient are these genres that people often say it's like it's a soundtrack for a movie that doesn't exist. And I hope Michael Weeks is in the chat. I don't know what his screen name is, so pop up if you are, Michael. But I've known Michael off and on for a while. Like, I feel like it's been like over 20 years. And the project of his that I knew is called The Wretch. And The Wretch has gone through a bunch of different changes in sound. And I can very much relate to that, because Dream Into Dust went through a bunch of changes in sound. And like Dream Into Dust, maybe not all of them were advisable in terms of keeping an audience interested in what you're doing, because
it might have needed a different name.
Yeah, there is a couple things that should have been under another name. Yeah, in my case for sure. Yeah, so Michael's done a lot of weird dark music under various names. Industrial projects and breakcore stuff, and a recurring theme in stuff is that he tends to want to build things up, and with these neoclassical synth strings, and I was into I don't want to sound like this. I was into Dungeon Synth before it was called Dungeon Synth, but it's true because I was into Mortis, and I'm sorry, Mortis, as I just discovered that's the way you pronounce it because that's
Same
the
here.
man himself.
Same here.
I know. It blew my mind
He shouldn't
when
have spelled
was
it with
on
two I's if he didn't want us to say it that way. It's on him, not us.
I listened to Gray's podcast, and I was like, "Oh, I gotta hear him." And he goes, "Yeah, it's the Mortis Project." I'm like, "The what?"
Yeah.
It's like when I went to see one of my favorite EBM bands a couple years ago, and they said, "Good night, thank you very much. This is Nitzareb." I mean, what? What did you just say? I've been saying Nitzareb. I've been correcting people that it's Nitzareb. And Douglas said Nitzareb on stage. I couldn't handle it. Anyway, so Mortis, I was into Mortis and into a lot of stuff. Dark. Actually, it was Dark Ceremony. Dark Sanctuary was another.
Oh yeah.
And Penitent and Ildfrost. You know, the Nithra. A lot of, you know, ambient but more neoclassical synth music that was coming out in the late 90s. And then at some point, some of it, I listened, I put it on one day and I went, this sounds too canned. I can't listen to this anymore. And I just, you know, walked away from it. And then, you know, a couple, you know, 3-4 years ago, I started hearing about Dungeon Synth. And I was like, what are you talking about? And I immediately, my mind went to that stuff. And I was like, are you talking about this? And it was, but apparently it had then, you know, evolved, you know, and there were now even subgenres. So I've been spending several years catching up, and so has Michael. And this stuff was always in there that both of us have composed and produced and everything. In fact, Michael did the literal soundtrack to a movie about Benedict Arnold called Benedict Arnold: Hero Betrayed. And there are all these little sound, you know, instrumental cues for the movie. And it's really cool. Nice. So that was a nice intro. And he had started this project called Etern. And it was like 20-minute long jams and of you know, neoclassical stuff. And it was like, it's a bit much. Like if it was a 20-minute battle scene, that might be pretty cool. But if you're just sitting at home listening to this. So I just said, hey, do you want to do an actual just straight up Dungeon Synth album? You know, I'll start with remixing these, cutting them down to something a bit more manageable. And also I feel like, you know, we could do some cooler things, you know, with, I see you're in headphones now. I am almost constantly in my headphones. So yeah. I pay a lot of attention to the stereo field, you know, hard panning stuff or panning stuff, you know, there's stuff that's dead center, there's stuff that's kind of there, there's stuff that feels like it's in a room, there's stuff that sounds like it's in a swimming pool, and there's stuff that sounds like it's coming from outside. You can't see my arms, but they're way out there. So, oh, Elend, good one. That's one I had their CD too. Elwin, thanks for the Murderous Vision reissue. Props there. Speaking of another release on the label, that was Stephen Petrus, of course. That was for his 25th anniversary.
Yeah, great stuff.
Project. Yeah, it was a blast to do. But yeah, so Etern was basically Michael putting together, you know, all of these just getting out all the neoclassical feelings, you know, and programming and playing. And me, you know, I've got a Dungeon Synth project too. It just isn't finished. And so, but I've been like just chomping at the bit to do something. So it's like, okay, this is my secondary way of being involved in this, because I know that I can take what you're doing and like finish it, yeah. Which is always, it's always kind of the way that I think of the label, or with, you know, mixing someone else's work, is like, you're the artist, this is your thing, and you have the final say. But I think that what you're doing is close enough to what I really like. I just wish it could be a little more this or a little less this. And if you trust me, then we can make it, I think, a bit better than it would have been if you'd just done it yourself, or a bit different, you know. And sometimes people go back to mixing their own stuff, or they send it to other people to mix, and I don't really care, you know. If we all like working with multiple people, you know. It's a way of doing it. You know, to me, it kind of goes back to, I brought up World Serpent. It's sort of the World Serpent model of, you know, you have like a collective of people that are all doing their own thing, and then you know who's in charge, because that's the person, you know, who's out front, or that's the person who's singing lead or whatever. But then you call these other people in to back you up because it's an instrument that you can't play, or there is a viewpoint, a musical viewpoint that, you know, a way that you wouldn't have played something. Or, hey, this other person is better at mixing, this other person is better at mastering, this other person is better at, you know, but it's still clear, like, this is this person's project, you know, and that's how it is. Speaking of Lee, who's the last person to speak, you know, when I'm involved with Theologian, I've mixed a couple things for Theologian. I always want to be totally sure, like, Theologian is Lee.
Yeah.
It is, you know, I love it, you know, but it's not, that's his creation. Sometimes Lee doesn't feel like mixing stuff. So, and sometimes I say, I know what to do with this. Let me mix this one. You know, and sometimes Lee goes, I don't feel like playing live alone, play live with me. And I'm like, sure, cool, let's do it. So, that's what that's like.
Yeah, that sounds like a very nice fluid relationship.
Yeah, it's cool. You know, I would like to be able to do that with Dream Into Dust, except that my stuff is so complicated and I'm so anal about, like, it's got to be exactly like this, that, you know, I drove the people I had in the live band kind of crazy, you know, like, you got to play the bass like this, you got to slide up, you know, and they would just be like, oh my God, why do you want to slide between every single fucking note, you know? So, you know, after I was just like, yeah, so I don't know if that's ever going to happen live again, or if it is, it might be just me, you know, with back to the very first Dream Into Dust show, which is just me acoustic with, you know, some electronic backing, you know, something like that. Because although one time I did have Christiana Key of Delphic Oracle play a violin with me live in Canada, and that was really
awesome.
nice. Yeah, because there was some viola. There's been violin, viola on Dream Into Dust songs, so I picked a bunch of songs that would have solos that she could play over it, and that was pretty cool. Apocryphos. Robert just brought up Some Things Have to Be Endured. That was the first time we worked together. And that was Lee just sending me like a title, and usually just like a drone, or like something that just 1 or 2 tracks, and just said, this is what it's called. Here's 8 minutes of this, and just go for it, add to it. I'm like, okay, but I don't want to add too much because it's not my thing, you know? So then I'd be like, all right, I came up with like, and sometimes he would know ahead of time who was going to sing on it, because this was also the album where he decided each song is going to have a different vocalist on it. And they all turned out to be women. So it was like, this one is going to be for Shari of Void Vision. This one is going to be for, you know, for Nikki of Prometheus Burning and later of Teledictorian. So
yeah, that's an incredible album.
Thank you. If I had that information, then I would be like, okay, that's going to influence what I'm going to add to this very simple drone. And then I'd sent it back to Lee, and then Lee built it up even more and chopped it and mixed it and everything, and then sent it to, oh God, who was it? I'm blanking, and I know it's like somebody he always uses, somebody really famous. And he's usually a mastering engineer, but he might have mixed this one. I don't remember. Come on, Lee. We got the 10-second delay here, so who mixed Some Things Have to Be Endured?
I'm grabbing my copy right now to look. It's within like, arm's reach here.
Plotkin just mastered it.
So, yeah, he'll tell you before I find it.
Okay, yeah.
I'd share the album, but it's not safe for work.
It was James Plotkin, but he only mastered it. But it still came out really well. So yeah, that's a good one. It's a really good one. But Lee has a bunch of good ones. Lee does some amazing stuff. So
Yeah,
that's why
very
I don't.
much so.
And that's where it comes back to, like I said, is sort of the world serpent model is one of the things I remember that one of those artists
Nope.
said was they only work with, I only work with other leaders, you know, and, you know, that kind of is a, you know, it was probably Douglas who said that. You know, it's kind of a very on the nose thing for Douglas to say, but, you know, it's kind of true. If you work with somebody else who already has their own project, who's already the star of their own show, you know that they're not coming in helping you, bringing anything other than what they can bring to the table to help you. You know, especially if they're a friend of yours, then there's not going to be any misunderstandings or problems, and you're not going to get people saying, "This is my moment. I've got to show off, do all of this crazy stuff." You know, and that's great if somebody does little show off moments or something like that, but to me it's always like, we got to serve the song, you know.
Yeah,
Like
definitely.
at times in Dreaming to Dust, like, you know, I've had like bassists who's like, there was a bassist who said, like, you know, it was very traditional, said I lock to the drummer, I can't lock to that, pointing at the drum machine. And I'm like, I don't know why you can't lock to that, first of all. Second of all, you're not locking to that, you're locking to me, you're locking to the voice, you're locking to the song. You know, and the drum machine is just, you know, everything is written to go together, you know, like usually there will be a kick drum that'll happen maybe half a beat early or a whole beat early, and because the vocal is happening a whole beat early, and so are the other things, and those all have to lock in together. It's not the drummer, you know, doing a little solo over here and the bassist suddenly being Jaco Pastorius for, like, you know, a measure, and so on like that, you know. But maybe that's because I'm not a soloist, you know. I've played, like, there's a guitar solo, I've done a couple guitar solos here, but there, you know, I was like a David Gilmour type of soloist. Like, I would come up with like very melodic things ahead of time. And, you know, so it's like 95% planned.
Yeah,
you know,
that's
like
awesome.
it's basically you're writing another melody. You're writing another melody on top of this section of the song. It's not just like, let's just masturbate, which is cool. There are some fucking great guitar soloists who sound like they're just wanking off and it sounds really good. You know, if you're, you know, Vernon Reid. Well, Vernon, I don't want to diss Vernon Reid. He can be hit or miss. Sometimes he's all like, you know, I'm doing a harmonic substitution of this and that. And I'm going, dude, I don't know what key you're playing in, and I'm not sure you do either. But I also really love the Living Colour album Time's Up, and they were a phenomenal band live. So, you know, and Vernon's great. Vernon's on a whole other level to me. It's just my personal listening choices sometimes. And in fact, somebody just brought this up. Sorry, not to diss Vernon again, but we were talking about Prince, who's another huge favorite of mine. And I said, oh, yes, my friend Dan, who I've played in, Dan Gitlin, who's a stick player. I played in a couple bands with him, Fourth Sign of the Apocalypse being one of them. And he said recently, Vernon Reid failed to nail the solo in either When Doves Cry or Purple Rain. And it's like, well, yeah, because you're Vernon Reid, you're not Prince.
Yeah.
And not to say one is necessarily better than the other. They are completely different players. And I can, yeah.
Have you seen, I caught this on YouTube a couple months ago. Prince was part of like a big collective of people that all did a cover of the Beatles' While My Guitar Gently Weeps. Oh my, and he came in for like the whole second half of the song and played this solo that just dropped my jaw. Like, oh my God.
Yeah. What's hilarious is that, see, I've been a Prince fan for a very long time, and I kind of stopped listening to him because I wasn't just into his new music after a while. But like, if somebody had said to me, yeah, Prince is playing, especially if it's a secret club show that's after the real show, I would be like, I'm going to that.
Yeah.
Because he's amazing, and he always has an amazing backup band too. But what's screwed up is, you know, as a little kid, as a mixed race kid, I identified with Prince, and other people identified me with Prince a little too much, and it was irritating. But also, people would like in the movie, they call him faggot and stuff like that. It's like, you got long hair, you got this weird looking face. It's like, no, this is what happens when you mix the races. Like, deal with it.
Yeah.
Which Prince has just 2 light-skinned black parents, but there, there's a mix back in there somewhere.
Yeah.
So all these people, is this very rock-centric attitude, So it's like Prince did rock with Purple Rain, but he was doing the rock star thing, and he was still doing a lot of funk and a lot of other stuff that like people weren't down with. And he's wearing makeup, and he's got the really tight. He's showing his ass on stage and all this stuff, and it's like you got this super dude bros who are just can't handle that, and they're like fag, and it's messed up. So it took until that, which I believe was the 2004 Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction, where I believe they were inducting George Harrison posthumously.
Yeah, because his son was up there playing with him, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. And was it Paul McCartney on keyboards too, or not?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. And Jeff Lynne is leading the band, and just like everybody, like all these fucking these boomers, like the entirety, like ELO plus Tom Petty, like everybody who was still alive.
Yep.
There was way too many guitars up there. It was like, you don't need 7 guitars to play the same rhythm, But that's what all those Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. But you're right, Prince came out and he killed it, and that is the moment when so many of these like dude bros who only like rock just went, oh shit, Prince can play. I'm like, you didn't know this? Like he did that in his sleep, and the guitar that he played. I can't even remember if it was the same old guitar that he's always had, but that song is just a descending 4 chords over and over again. He totally is like, dude, I didn't even have to rehearse for this.
Yeah.
Then at the end, he literally just throws it up in the air. I'm pretty sure there was a tech hanging above waiting to catch it so it would just look really cool, because he just threw the guitar up in the air and it never lands.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm glad I didn't know that was, I guess, that popular of a moment, but yeah, I don't even know how I came across it, but because I mean, I grew up with Prince, I was watching Purple Rain back when I was probably like 10 years old, or probably younger than that. And I mean, I love the movie, I love the album, and just in general, since that point, I've always, as you said, like, I never really followed Prince that much, but yeah, he's awesome.
yeah. No, it's great. But yeah, I ended up having a lot of other, influences since then, But that's definitely a person who loomed large in my young life for various reasons. One of them was just like the fact that, he could play everything. And that inspired me saying, I can play everything too.
Nicely.
So it was, oh, nice. Yeah, the boombox with Purple Rain. Yeah,
Awesome.
I've seen that. I'm sure I've seen Purple Rain at least 6 times. Yeah. I have it on DVD, and I have on DVD. I don't know if you've heard of this. I can't remember or pronounce the. I should just look it up. There is another movie that is called, in a sense, the Nigerian Purple Rain, because it is essentially a retelling of Purple Rain in Nigeria.
Interesting.
And it's yeah, I can't find it, but it's a really good Nigerian artist, and they just sort of retell it. It's funny, you're watching it, you're like, I can tell this guy is the Morris Day character. I can tell this woman is Apollonia. It's a fun movie, but yeah, Prince wasn't certainly everything I wanted to do. I did play in a rock funk band a very long time ago, but I didn't want to continue down that path because it's boring,
Yeah, it's a very, very well trodden path that there's not a lot of room for innovation, and it's sort of past its time, I guess, in a way.
Yeah, it's just it's hard. I feel like there's almost an infinite number. There's almost an infinite number of directions you can go into with even something like dark ambient. Like
Yeah.
if you listen, it's like this one doesn't sound like that one. Sure, there's boring dark ambient, but like you can do so much, because especially if you get minimal, because then it's like, hey, just focus on this one thing, you know.
Yeah, and that's such a misconception of people that aren't, really that into it, that it's like, oh, well, it's all basically just like a little bit of drone, right? And it's like, well, no. It can get way more subtle than that.
Oh, yeah, yeah. But I mean, having said that, so when I started doing Unfeeling, there was definitely uh, I wanted to keep it very minimal. I think none of those tracks have more than four different things going on, and all of those tracks are like 8 minutes long or whatever.
Yeah,
But it's
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 good
it's
stuff,
it's
though.
a very headphone oriented thing, because that was how it was all done, and it was just like, listen to this sound. It's not like there's no drones in that. It's always like there's some kind of a pulse, there's some kind of something moving, there's things literally moving from head ear to ear, things going up and down in frequency, so and there's a purpose to it. Each of the albums so far has been about something that went wrong with me. Like the first time it was like basically insomnia, but specifically about, for a while in early 2020, even before the pandemic started, it was like, okay, apparently I have two choices each night. I can either not sleep and then be completely bleary-eyed in the morning and half the day, or I can take some kind of sleep aid and then I can wake up like I'm stoned for half the day, and it didn't matter almost what I took, and I've tried. This has been a difficulty for years. I'm not even taking anything like prescription at this point, because when I have, that's some dangerous stuff. You do the Xanax and anything in the benzo family, you're asking for trouble. Sometimes it's necessary, but you better get off of that soon, or you're gonna
Yeah,
have a
the
bad time.
the positives start to. It's a very diminishing return, very very quick diminishing return with that.
Yeah, your body gets used to it, and then you're taking more. Fortunately, I wasn't taking more,
Yeah.
but I was augmenting it with other things. Well, now they say that having a glass of red wine before bed is good, so I will have a very large glass of red wine along with
Yeah.
my Klonopin, which you're really not supposed to do.
No.
But so yeah, this was getting back into that sort of thing. So I basically, the first Unfeeling album was done entirely in bed, like half asleep, headphones on, just like going,
Oh, that's cool.
move this thing here, move that thing there. And as I'd slowly wake up, then I'd actually get better at, it wouldn't be just, but I know how to use programs now, so I can kind of do it in my sleep to some extent. I'm just automatically going, use this plugin, cut the bass below this, cut the highs above this, so forth. So it's
Well, that's such a good
yeah.
place to be in when you can start to feel like the software that you're using is becoming an actual instrument for you.
Oh, totally, totally. Yeah, I mean that's the first Unfeeling. I really, both the first two are like they're 100% in the box. Maybe not 100%. I feel like the second one has some things that were laid down as synth bits, where I just was playing with the synth and went, this is a good thing. Let me record it, and then I just save it to a folder of stuff, interesting sounds, and so then that became a starting point. And the second year, the problem was that I was on some other medication and I started feeling woozy and nauseous. So I was like popping Dramamine for a month. So that was what that was all about. You know, and there's a whole explanation of it on that second album. You know, and here I'm doing this again. I'm forgetting to drop in links. Unfeeling, as we're talking about Unfeeling. Where's the other album? I don't know.
Yeah, I had a weird situation like probably 8 years ago. I just kept getting dizzy, and the doctor's like, "Just take Dramamine," and I'm like, "I don't know about that."
That doesn't. Yeah, this is my problem with that now. You know, because I've been through doctors who don't care; they just throw pills at you. It's like, this is not solving the root issue.
Yeah.
That's nice that I can do that. Just like the first person
It's
who
like,
said, "Here,
yo, I'm dizzy.
take
I'll just go get some Dramamine." Like, obviously,
Yeah.
but that's not what I came to you for.
You can't sleep, just go on Klonopin. Yeah, that's fine. But it's like, I still can't sleep. Well, just stay on it. No, you should now figure out better ways to sleep. That you don't need something that's like, you know, that it's a cartoon sledgehammer hitting you over the head and you go down. Actually, that's Valium, but yeah.
That's my constant
intense.
story with doctors is, wait, am I going to have to do this for 10 or more years? Yes. Okay, then no.
Yeah. Well, and then you can't get off of it, or it takes at least 5 years to get off of it once you're on it, because you can't go cold turkey on those things. You might have a heart attack or go into a coma or something.
Yeah, I have a friend that died from stuff like that happening. So yeah, it's no joke. So yeah, that's why I'm just like, no, thank you. I will handle my pain. I will not sleep.
Yeah, yeah. But I'm going to have to work out how to not do this. I mean, I think Unfeeling is going to always be about that kind of an altered state. Oh, and hey, there's another movie I love, Altered States. Gotta love that one. And because I want to get into, you know, doing it with my fingers, not just on a keyboard, you know. You know, I got a I can't even think of what it is now. It's like a touch synth. It's made in Brooklyn, actually.
Oh, nice.
I got it a couple years ago. So it reacts to your fingers.
They're starting to make some cool pieces of hardware like that these days that, you know, I'm not really into what all's happening, but I've seen some really interesting products.
Yeah, I ended up getting that, but I was originally first thinking about the one that both Michael Weeks and Robert Galbraith have, which is the Lyra 8. And it's like an eight. I think it's got 8 oscillators, and you just touch your fingers on them, and then you can mix them, and then it reacts depending on how many fingers you have. Like, it doesn't play like a normal keyboard. It reacts like if you have this finger on here, it'll play this, but then if you have another finger on a different note, it doesn't just play that other note. It's like those two sort of start bouncing between each other because you're completing a circuit with your body. But no, the one I ended up picking up was the Landscape stereo field, which is even more. And I first saw that from Thomas of Straight Panic had one of those, or maybe even still does. But it's a pretty intense thing. There's a lot of things going on. It's like this crazy matrix of interlocking pieces of metal that you can touch your fingers on, and it's exciting because it's both you can use it to just make straight up glitchy noise, or you can use it to make tones and notes, and then of course if you process it through other stuff, then you're going to get really crazy with it. So having said that, this leads up to me mentioning what I told you beforehand, which is that there's going to be an Unfeeling live set upstate in Ithaca, New York, opening for Mort White, who is a big dungeon synth artist that I really like. So I was very, very psyched about being asked to do that.
And that's awesome.
that came about because of Lexi of Prayer Rope, who has a dungeon synth project of her own and is opening, and got recommended by somebody else. Oh, are we freezing? No, we're back. Okay. So that's going to happen July 2nd in Ithaca. Yep. Somebody is mind blown at Ithaca. Ithaca's a
I
lovely
was going to
place.
say somebody must be there.
Ithaca was the last tour stop for the recent Compactor and Retribution Body tour, and it was probably the best show. It was in a great space called the Soil Factory. They have some great people running it. Bubba Crumrine, Jen Cutler, who's also a brilliant artist and amazing technical person, like, who loves to get in and just not just fix things, but literally build things. In fact, it's so hot here that there's a blower that she gave me. Said, "Oh, if you need something to cool off your cassette decks, here, this is the best thing."
Oh, nice.
And I'm like, "What's that?" She's like, "I don't know, but it's really expensive to get." And yeah, I'm waiting to see it, if it even makes it to the screen. Yeah, it is. Okay. So, but I can't run this because it's really loud. You blow it, it's just like, oh, can't use that with the interview. Yeah, there's a bunch of people doing a cool arts thing. You know, they've repurposed the space, this big warehouse thing. So I was able to have video, and audio was really great. We had Chris Knight, who does really good noisy techno stuff up there, was running sound, and video was captured of it. So hopefully I'll get that soon. And, stuff from the last Compactor live shifts will surface. Yeah,
that's what's up. Yeah, well, that sounds like that's going to be a really cool show. And since you were just mentioning your tape decks there, I wonder if you would like to sort of let people know if there's any sort of services that they can contact you for in that area. I know I've seen you talking about it on social media recently, so it might not be a bad idea to plug that.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's a good. I feel embarrassed about doing it. I started just duping my own tapes because it's that actually goes back to starting the label. I mean, tapes were the first things that I released, and part of that was due to a great book, which I keep looking over there like I'm going to go get it, but of course I'm not. Called Cassette Mythos. It was just basically started with something called The Death of the Demo Tape, which was saying there's no point for demo tapes anymore. Why did you make demo tapes? To impress some guy in a suit at a record label who would then hopefully magically let you sign a piece of paper that meant you were going to get $500,000 to go in the studio with somebody big and make a record. And you know what? Fuck that. That's not going to happen. If it does, maybe you don't want it to happen, because a lot of times those deals are very one-sided. And it was just like, do it yourself. And you know what allows you to do it yourself? Tapes. You get a tape deck, you record it, there it is, there's your release. Obviously, there's more to it than that. You want it to be good, so you have to look and find what are the good tape decks. You got to service them, you got to clean them, you got to calibrate the speed, things like that. But I've learned over the years, and more especially since the pandemic started, how to do that. So I just kept getting more and more decks just to release my own stuff. And as I started ramping up with the label, because, the first batch that released a couple years ago, 2019 now, was Murderous Vision, Autonomy, and a split between Straight Panic and, God, I'm about to say Inhalant, Pollutant. Wow. Big difference between Pollutant and Inhalant. So, I duplicated those. But yeah, since then, I've just been improving my knowledge about duping tapes and picking up more used decks and getting them serviced and cleaning them. So now, I started offering just dubbing for a while, but then at the end of 2021, I picked up a high quality printer. It was a big risk, dumping a whole bunch of money at once, but it's worked out. So I've been, actually I could even show you. This is just, cool. This is a test print. I can wait if I could see it. I can't see myself yet on this, but this is, if it's,
I can see about half of it, okay. 3/4 of it. Stick it a little closer to your face.
Okay.
Yeah,
perfect. This way. Perfect. Here we go. Yeah,
perfect.
So this is a test print I got for, I believe it's Galgora. Anyways, it's on Where Gnome Records, who now comes to me for tapes. I started duping, first I was doing a lot of noise tapes, and then I started doing Dungeon Synth, and now I'm doing pretty much everything.
Yeah, I like Where Gnome.
Yeah, so first I just duplicated some jazz for Bob Bucko Jr.'s label, starting to duplicate the tapes for Orb tapes.
Cool.
Of course, the Chthonic Streams releases that just came out are on those. Yeah, so it's basically like, I can literally, the chat, yeah, I'm not going to drop my actual email into this chat, but that's probably a bad idea. I could drop it like split up. If you want to.
Yeah, so hit him up for your dubbing needs.
Yeah. So, I will just dub tapes, but I also can do labels and do the J cards for them, or it doesn't even have to do normal J cards. I did a release recently for Zilmra, who's a great experimental artist living in Brooklyn. He plays on a contact mic'd bicycle wheel, and sometimes he's played with Missing Foundation, if you've heard of them, pretty legendary New York City industrial band. Did duplicate the new Infinite Zuma. That's Lucas, who put together the Ruinous Resound Fest, which was really great. Props to Lucas for doing that, because that was amazing. That happened back in October.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I'm a big fan of his music.
Yeah, no, it's really good stuff, and I'm bummed that it was supposed to be Retribution Body and Compactor and Infinite Zuma and Dog, who is another legendary harsh noise fellow, Steve Davis, out of Worcester. I don't know if he's out of Worcester, but that's where I know him from. Definitely Massachusetts. And Alley Gear, and then somebody at the house venue, somebody got COVID, so that show had to be canceled, but it stinks, but there was Compactor and Infinite Zuma happened at Ruinous Resound, so there was that. Lucas had some technical issues. I know that he's not especially fond of that particular set, but it was cool. And I know from the recordings that, Lucas makes really good music and does his own label too. He hasn't asked me to duplicate, but that's cool. You can use whoever you want.
Yeah. Well, as we experienced here at the beginning of the stream, you never know when technical difficulties are going to happen when you're working in a live setting.
And I've had technical difficulties here. I've had cutting problems and tape breakage problems, and it's like, hey, guess what? All those covers that I did for you are ruined, and now I have to wait for some more paper to show up. But hopefully that'll be tomorrow. Yeah. So that's actually a true story, and I'm not saying whose job it is, but but no, it happens. And the fact is that even with that, I'm still generally turning around people's work a lot faster than the two major companies that people go to.
Yeah, well, that's awesome.
And I'm also, because I'm in the underground and because I make, music that is noise and dark ambient and, neoclassical and all these weird things, and I have ears. And the way that I duplicate things, I do it, in real time, and I actually do a test tape first, and I have adjustments to make sure that what comes out of the tape is really as close as possible to what goes in. I'll A/B it before going ahead and running, 25, 50, 100, 200. I did 150 for Fed Ash recently. I did 200 of it was 400 tapes, but it was 200 copies of 2 different 120-minute tapes, which is just a massive compilation. Yeah, that's the Pain in New England compilation, which was put together by Isaac. Well, Pain stands for something. It's like power electronics, ambient, industrial noise.
Nice.
So they still got a bunch of those, but it's like everybody in the New England area, who does anything like that, stretched out across 4 hours of tape. So that came out really well. And if there's any of those left, which there probably are, and you like noise and you're in New England, or you think something about New England, or you're wondering what's happening in New England, then you should pick that up. I've already been paid. It has nothing to do with me. I just think it's really good. I didn't do the printing for that one. I wasn't able to at the time. But that is another tall, weird one, like the Zilmra thing that I was mentioning. That was in a tall case. So like whatever size of print you need, I could do that.
Nice.
Anyway, enough. This is getting me. I feel all icky now. Like I'm just.
Well, it's a necessary evil.
No, really, because like my regular job is just not happening right now. This is how I'm literally. I'm keeping the lights on, keeping this internet connection by duping tapes. I should be duping tapes right now. As soon as we hang up, I'm gonna just turn that on and start duping tapes again. I just thought it would be rude to continually getting up and flipping tapes over while we're doing this.
That's funny. Yeah, well, we'll let you get back to that shortly.
Oh yeah, no hurry. I'm enjoying this, obviously.
Yeah.
What else
well, let's talk a little bit about your other 2 recent label releases, the Solipsis and Mortuary Womb.
Sure. So, that's a word I never pronounce either. So I say solipsis, could be solipsis, no idea. Someone wants to do the Google Webster or something there and say what's the proper pronunciation. I'll be down with that. But that's James Miller, who's another person I've known on and off for several years. Met him for the first time at INC. Compactor toured down there for 2019 INC, and I think they played the same night, both Compactor and Solipsis. I'm not sure. Anyway, their set was great, and it was cool, and we met, and then I noticed that there are a lot of Solipsis releases popping up on Robert's label. Robert Galbraith keeps getting name checked here. So just James is a very prolific artist, and like myself and like Michael, can't really stick to one genre, but unlike us, just keeps doing everything as Solipsis. Just I don't care. So there's a Solipsis breakcore release that's called "Is This Breakcore?" And I can confirm that it is breakcore, and it's really fucking good.
Nice. I'll have to check
but
that
a lot
out.
of times Solipsis gets thrown out as just like, this is just some noise. And James is very probably overly humble about his abilities, and also James just like records in like crazy amounts of creativity. Not just like we'll go, I came up with a thing, okay, I've got a thing, and then just like, okay, here we go, and just like record it straight to stereo in one take, and then just go, okay, I'm done, and then like do that 5 more times, and then we started talking about working together, and you go, okay, and it's like he sent me like 12 tracks, and I was like, wait, what? And then he just sent me like another 10, and then he sends me another set. In the end, I had 73 tracks. I'm not kidding, 73 songs to choose from.
Jeez.
And so what I ended up doing was like picking, I feel like, the best 10 songs, or actually 11 songs, and then basically separated into folders that were yes, no, and maybe. And the no doesn't mean they're bad. The no just means like I wasn't into it, and it doesn't fit the story that I feel is being told by the music that I'm getting here. Mm-hmm. So put it into, I said, okay, here we go. This is what's coming out of it. So then there were other things that had really good sounds to it, but they weren't really finished songs. They were just kind of sketches. And even some of the songs that seemed like they were finished seemed like, oh, this doesn't quite, it's missing something. And then I listened to them all together and realized, oh, hey, if I pull this piece that was just an intro from this unfinished song, that will perfectly go over as a secondary, instrument to come in, halfway through this other song.
Oh, that's cool.
So, yeah, there's about 5 songs that are like that, where I was doing a little bit of Dr. Frankensteining of not just, remastering and tweaking, but then also layering over some of his very similar tracks on top. And then 5 are just totally him. And again, these are all just straight. A couple of them might have been edited a bit, shorter, this seems like it's going on, let's cut out a couple verses here. But it's just, literally he just goes into his stereo mixer, gets all the panning and everything right, and then just records it. So, there was no mixing for me to do. It was all shit, let's just try and sort of EQ this so that it fits with the rest of it, and then once it was all together with the tracks that have the pieces put on top of it, then doing an overall master for everything. If there was time, I probably might have sent that to Robert Galbraith to do, because he's very familiar with James's work, but I didn't have the time, I didn't have the money, and I was just I'm so deep into this, I need to just finish it all myself, so that's out, and that stuff is more rhythmic. He calls himself a rhythmic noise producer, I guess. That name is a bit, I don't want to say it doesn't always get used, in the right context. I think when you think of rhythmic noise, hey, see, this time you remembered it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
when you think of rhythmic noise, I first of all think of, someone like, Imminent, and people like that are just literally it's just overloaded, just blown out rhythms, rhythms that are made out of pieces of noise, and that instead of melodies on top of it, it's just more noise slathered on top, but doing something that sounds kind of like a hook. And sometimes Compactor is rhythmic noise. I keep bringing up Compactor, but we'll get to that at the end because of the tour. So yeah, James, but the This Is Breakcore album could also be called rhythmic noise because it's very noisy breakcore. It's very overloaded, very distorted. And so this isn't so much a rhythmic noise album. I made some comparisons on this album. I think I mentioned Scorn because there's a bunch of mid-tempo, down-tempo things with heavy bass, and Coil. There's some late 80s, early 90s Coil sounding stuff on the album with his synth tones and everything. Yeah. And you could even say some of the later the Fragile and Onwards, Iffy, the Trent Reznor, Atticus Ross type of breathy sounds are kind of in there too, here and there. But, and it's all instrumental, but it doesn't give you the feeling that you're waiting for a vocal to come in, I think that's what's difficult with a lot of very organized, industrial, industrial dance, electro-industrial, is that if it's instrumental, you feel well, where, when is the angry German guy start barking at us? And yes. This doesn't have that. You just go, this is it. This is all you need. So yeah, it was really fun to do and work on. It's a blast to work with James. He's very easy to get along with. It was kind of a long process for him because normally he's just it's done here and throws it, and it's out immediately. Or it's, Robert listens to it and goes, okay, I've mastered it and here it is and it's out. And I think, I took a very long time because I was doing other stuff. And one of the other things, since it was brought up already, and you're waiting for it, is the Mortuary Womb, which has been waiting for a very long time because that was recorded in early 2014.
Oh wow!
With John, yeah, with John Binder. It was recorded at the same time as. So in fact, an earlier version of one of those songs ended up being on some kind of compilation that was a benefit compilation for something. But anyway, that version didn't survive because I had a massive hard drive catastrophe, and so it ended up being redone as something else. So I didn't redo anything, but it was more like the tracks were already there, and it was like stuff had to be edited. Also, it barely fits on a 64-minute tape, and if you do tapes over 64 minutes, then the tape gets thinner, and you start getting to the thin tape that's the same as if you use a C120.
Yeah.
And those can just snap. So it's kind of rough. But Mortuary Womb is funny. It was kind of similar in brief to... Sorry, I'm talking fucking advertising terms here. It's kind of similar in concept, and influence to that Murderous Vision album, Abscission, from 2019, which is that it was hearkening back to the Cold Meat Industry and Slaughter Productions albums of the late 90s. So what was happening is I got to know John online, and he was doing a project called Arcanow that was like more dark ambient stuff, more like digital synths and whatever washes of cool stuff.
Yeah.
And we just started talking. It was like, he was just like, I'm really not feeling like doing this ton of stuff. I want to do something much darker. And I was like, yeah, I know you. And now's the perfect time too, because it's winter, and this is the vibe. And so he started sending me just, here's some tracks of just me doing this kind of dark ambient stuff that's trying to go in a heavier direction. And I said, cool. I'm really into like A-Trax Morgue. Let me put some of that kind of shit on it, get my, just pull out something that sounds like an MS-20 and like, run it through some distortion, or just like, use the bottom two keys on the keyboard, make them vibrate together, tweak the stuff, put some random patches, just make it, just that fart sounds from hell, stuff like that. And also that Cold Meat vibe of like the earliest Cold Meat that I got into, which was like Carmanic Collection and In the Butcher's Backyard, stuff like that. So, and then I'd send it back to him, and maybe he'd add another track, and he'd come back to me, and then I'd mix the whole thing and send it to him for his approval. So everything was ready to basically be an album, although it was like, no, I think we should do a final mix later, give it to someone to master. But I'm like, this is really good. This should be on a label. And then his life just kept changing and taking all these weird turns. And then so did mine. And then by the time I got mine back on track in early 2016, he then said, yeah, I've got some new stuff. I'm doing a new project. And sent me 2 tracks. And I was like, whoa, these are intense. And apparently he also sent the same 2 tracks to only a few other people. And then he was dead. Just, I'm not going to go into it, but, and there's, it's still not official as to whether this was a choice or an accident.
Yeah.
But it was tragic nonetheless. And, it's not like John was a saint. He was a good guy. Other times maybe he was a not so good guy for various reasons. But, nobody deserves to check out early like that. He was having a lot of struggles. So I ended up, I always meant to release it, but that I just got busy with a lot of other things. And then, since doing the first batch in 2019, I said, Mortuary Womb's got to come out. And it probably could have been in 2020, but then I just had so many other things. I was like, I got to get out this Dream into Dust collection of all the compilation tracks. And then Elizabeth Verosa of Snow Beasts did a solo album, and I was like, whoa, 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 this is great. Can I put that out? Because I'd already put out a Snow Beasts album before that. And then the third one was the reissue of the Murderous Vision Abscission on CD with 3 extra tracks, which is like 20 more minutes of stuff. I feel like it was a little soon to do that because it's been kind of difficult. But, you know, this is why we have this. So I'm going to do that thing right now and remind people that there are still Murderous Vision Abscission CDs in my possession. We
Awesome.
split them. This was it was a co-release between, it's sold out from the Bandcamp for some stupid reason. Oh, it's the cassette. No, the CD is not sold out. Yeah, so I still have CDs. I think Steven is sold out of his. So it was co-released between Chthonic Streams and Live Bait. But yeah, it's a really good album, and the CD is even better than the tape. Yeah, people should pick that up. But I had wanted to do, that was when Steven wanted to do it. So I was like, okay, well, we're not going to do Mortuary Womb 2.
Yeah.
And that's kind of all. I always have this idea with the label that I try to show multiple facets of what the sound is. Mm-hmm. That there's like, you know, so like with this thing, we've got an album of dungeon synth. Like there's percussion on it, but it's all like neoclassical percussion, at least in the final mix. And then there's Mortuary Womb, which is this, you know, extremely dark, post-industrial, dark ambient crossed with like, you know, almost, you know, drone and power electronics, miserable stuff. And then there's Solipsis, which is like, you know, kind of industrial dance and, you know, dubby and, you know, down-tempo stuff that's noisy and crunchy, but it's not noise, you know, per se. Yeah. So, you know, and these aren't even all the aspects that, you know, belong on the label. But, you know, as it is, it's so difficult for me to focus on pushing even one release, and pushing 3 is difficult too. And sometimes, you know, outlets don't want to hear about more than one thing. They're like, whoa, you're sending me 3 albums? And I'm like, yeah. I mean, fans like it because they're like, ooh, batch, let me just buy the whole batch. Yeah, exactly. Or let me buy 2 of these, and that helps. But yeah, but in terms of promotion, it can be a little bit difficult. So yeah, so Mortuary Womb is out finally. It's out digitally, and it's out physically, technically, in that it's been duplicated and there are printed things here, but there's been so many personal life crises and problems, one of them being that I have to work like, you know, 20 hours a day duplicating tapes to keep a roof over my head, that I'm struggling to finish putting together the tapes for my own label, which I wish wasn't the case, but that's what's happening. I just shipped out 2 tapes to Component, to Robert Galbraith again, who wins for most mentions this podcast. So they can have the Elizabeth Verosa and Juliana Funkhauser collaboration, as well as the DUME and Snow Beasts collaboration cassettes. So they're going to have those now. And I got a whole bunch of other stuff to do.
Yeah, well, that's good to stay busy. It's better to be too busy than not busy enough, even if it's insane.
Yeah, no, it comes and goes. And, you know, there's been so many times when I'm just like, you know what, I'm just gonna stay in bed. Yeah. Forever. You know. And that's great. That can be a great feeling, you know. You just throw on The Cure's Disintegration really loud and just lay back. You know.
Oh, it's a great album.
I did that for so many years. And a lot of Dreaming to Dust took so long because I spent so much time doing things like that. Just I gotta take a pause and just do that. Or, being curled up in a fetal position, writing lyrics, going like, oh, I can't get this,
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Yeah. Well,
another reason I've got to get all this stuff done is because then there's another Compactor tour happening in 2 weeks, less than
yeah.
2 weeks, and
Yeah.
I
That's
am the
awesome.
sysadmin for that, so I've got to be on point, setting up the machinery and taking it down and riding in cars for hours and hours with people I barely know, but whose work I respect. So
Yeah.
we'll
Well, that's
see.
always
We'll
good.
see what that is. Yeah, no, it's gonna be cool. It's gonna be cool. Going out with Professor A from Bison Squad this time, touring from Philly to Fargo, the ultimate being Fargo Noise Fest, the 3-day festival put on by Brandon Wald, formerly of Monowolf, now of Support Unit, and a bunch of other projects that I'm so embarrassed. Black Ring Rituals is his label, which has put out some Compactor stuff and a lot of really cool compilations, and very important to the Midwest noise scene, a pillar, absolutely. And then Eric of Sleeping with the Earth is driving from Portland, Oregon to play Fargo Noise Fest, and then get in the car with him, and then Sleeping with the Earth and Compactor are going to tour the rest of the way. A couple dates in the West Midwest, whatever you want to call that.
Yeah.
Let's see, like Nebraska, Colorado, Utah, and Idaho, I believe. Not I believe, hopefully,
Yeah.
I
You are
should
really
say.
on the move.
Some of those are not 100% confirmed yet. Everybody wants them to happen. Everybody's working to make them happen. But then the ultimate is that there will be a 5-day festival in the forest called Litha Cascadia in the middle of southern Washington. And if you're interested in that, it's going to be like 54 bands.
Nice.
Playing across 5 days, because because the whole point is that you got pagans in that crowd of whom I have been a part various times, so it has to coincide with the solstice. So the weekend didn't coincide with the solstice this year, so they just said, we'll just do it 2 more days until we hit the solstice on the last night. So it's a
Awesome.
5 days of camping in the woods, 2 stages, something like 54 bands, an incredible number of performers.
Yeah, it sounds epic.
Yeah, it is. It really is going to be, and oh, Northumbria. What you should go. If you can't go, then go someday. But definitely apply to play there in the future, because Northumbria should be playing at this festival.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
And lots of friends of mine play. Well, Infinite Exuma is playing this. Jason William Walton, formerly of Agalach, who Compactor toured with in 2018, is playing. Sleeping with the Earth, of course. Who else do I know who's playing? Oh, Eye of Nyx, which is Joy and Chris Masaki of To End It All, who are great. And they're sometime live member of To End It All. Anne, who also is now also playing separately as Serpentent, and she just dropped a great neo-folk album. I hope to be working with Anne also in the future on Chthonic Streams, which is another reason I bring up Serpentent.
Nice.
Yeah, it's crazy. Thief, it's just so much. So many bands. It's out of control, but it'll be great. But after 5 days of that, some people were saying, yeah, and then you're going to play Seattle, right? And Olympia and Portland. And I was like, no. After 3 weeks of being on the road, culminating in 5 days sleeping in a tent, I am going home.
Yeah, that sounds like it's going to be necessary at that point.
I will probably revert to not getting out of bed for the next several days. That'll probably when another Unfeeling album will come out.
That'll be understandable.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that sounds awesome, man. Um, yeah, so I guess we'll go ahead and wrap things up here then, unless there's anything else that you wanted to mention that we haven't covered. But yeah, I really appreciate your time today.
Yeah, I think we hit all of the names that you mentioned. You know,
Yeah,
we didn't go into extreme depth about them. And there's even been other projects that I've been involved with. There's a sort of minimal death techno project called Sensormute that I did with Ben Hudgens of Bone Church. I've played on other people's albums. Yeah, I lose track. Like if anybody watched In Living Color a long time ago, there was a sketch about the hardest working family, the Hedmond family. They were Jamaican, and it was just like always talking about how like me got 20 job, man, and then like the son, it was like you lazy boy, you only got 4 job. It's like, but dad, me and 10 bands. And so that
that was a
14
great
things,
show.
not bad. Yeah. So that's me. I'm the kid who's in the 10 bands. They can't happen simultaneously, but they're so, and that includes, I mentioned Theologian. There's been the beginnings of some Theologian album that started last summer at Lee's place. Various people have stopped over and played at various times, like for his birthday weekend. So like
Yeah.
Grant Richardson of Nod and Stephen Petrus of Murderous Vision were there. We all laid down tracks on Lee's studio.
Awesome.
Our friend Esther, who plays bass in a band who's Street Legs, that's what it's called now. I just had to remember because they changed names. And Esther's worked with Lee before doing makeup stuff for some photo shoots for Theologian in the past.
Nice.
Nikki Teledictorian, as I've mentioned before, then she came over, did some rhythmic noise, and Gretchen Heinel, Lee's partner, has done vocals with us. So yeah, it's just people coming in and out at Lee's place, recording tracks haphazardly, trying to get it all in separate tracks as much as possible. I'm collecting them. We haven't really begun saying this is taking shape yet. This is an album. We're just in the stage of like, let's have fun and let's record. Let's do some stuff. But,
yeah, I remember watching all that on social media when you guys were sort of sharing all of that happening during his birthday event.
It was a blast, and it was very important. And it's a really important thing that we realized, especially after the pandemic, which is that so much is about community and so much is about your friends and your real friends, the ones who stick around or the ones who come back and say, yeah, I was gone because I was doing my own thing, but I'm here. And and it's great when you see who turns up, who really shows up for stuff. So that's what it's about, is like Lee having people over and, just saying like, hey, let's hang out. And, honestly, the great and funny thing about hanging out with Lee is that 90% of the trip is not about music. It's actually about all these other things. It's about taking a hike, going for a swim, watching crazy shows, TV shows and stuff like, oh God, what's Matt Berry is apparently Lee's favorite man crush right now. What We Do in the Shadows. Yeah, I saw the first episode of What We Do in the Shadows. I was like, oh my God, this is so hilarious. And then like then the sun goes down and then all of a sudden the gear comes on and all these people who are just doing whatever start picking up instruments and we start making this fucked up noise. So so it's been really cool. You gotta balance out your activities, so you can focus. So then when it's time to do the thing, you're really like, okay, I'm ready to like pour all of my shit into it, you know. And I was trying to say it was really important to come together. Like those were like the first people that I saw outside of my mother, you know, since having gotten vaccinated.
Yeah.
It was like, oh my God, I can go like say hi, you know, and give a hug to like Lee and Gretchen and Esther, and you know, then more people were coming over, so that was great. Yeah, and I planned for that to happen again. It's just, you know, it's right now it's a scheduling thing, as you can tell. I'm stupid busy because you know, this is what happens. I will lay in bed and do nothing, or lay in bed and do Unfeeling, but more likely nothing, unless I schedule things for myself. So I say, hey, you know, should probably tour or something,
Yeah.
you know, and then I schedule it, and then I design everything, and then it's like, oh shit, now I actually have to go out on this tour.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of what it was like. But you know, it's good. It's good. There's pros and cons, but overall, it's good.
Yeah, well, enjoy the tour, man. That sounds like it's going to be a lot of fun. That's a lot going on, but yeah, it should be cool. So
Yep.
yeah, well, yeah, I really appreciate having you here tonight, and talking about all these projects. It's like, yeah, I mean, you got a lot going on, but it's a lot of really cool stuff and great music, and yeah, so I'm glad you were able to sort of walk us through all the new things that have been happening recently, and best of luck with that tour, and we'll stay on top of the upcoming releases. And
Yeah, and I'm just gonna do a little, you know, self plug here. That's my Discogs
perfect.
thing, which only literally has one release on it, but but that page then links to all the other stuff that pretty much all the other stuff that I've done: Murder of Angels, December, Dream into Dust, Loretta's Doll of Unknown Origin, Sensormute. And then if you follow the links for compilation appearances and credits and all that stuff, then it links to other stuff. So, you know, I've been doing this for a while. Who knows why? Well, because I can't stop. Because I can't help it. Well, it's really just that if I don't, because like I said, I will just not do it. But if I don't do it for like, I'll just get really, really unhappy and really cranky, and then talk to a friend and be like, I don't know what it is, but I'm fucking miserable right now. Like, I don't, and they'll try to put their finger on it and say, well, you know, you got all these things going on in your life, and, you know, pandemic, like, oh yeah, pandemic. And then I'll be like, I haven't done any music in like 5 days. Like, I've worked on music, but it's all like working on design or tour planning or duplicating or mastering or something like that. It's like I haven't like plugged in and actually played sound or like been creative in any way. It's like you're blocked up. You have to get it out.
Yeah, for sure.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah. So, thanks to everybody in the comments for all the kind words there for Derek and myself.
Yeah. Are the comments saved in the when this gets archived?
Yes, the stream chat should be available, and also I have it all hard coded into the screen, so at the very least you'll see it on the screen. But yeah, it should also be down the side too.
It's right in front of my face, but I'm ignoring it because it's in that space between my eyes. Cool. Yeah, because I apologize I hope if anyone was actually saying anything directly to me, I missed a lot of it. So I hope there weren't questions or something like that. Yeah, if I see them later on and I can find your screen name, maybe I'll, you know, reply or something. But, you know, don't hold your breath for that. Because
you got a lot going on. You got to get back to work now.
You can't see it, but I have 8 boxes. So there's like 800 cassettes, like blank cassettes behind me that have to be duplicated onto. And,
no, well, your setup is cool. We just got your face, and then like a collection of CDs, I think, or cassettes over top of you. There is everything else is darkness. So.
Yeah, exactly. It seemed like it was a good thing to happen. Oh no! Oh, Lee is talking about something else. I saw July 27th, and I was like, "What?" No, it's July 2nd in Ithaca. It'll be Mort White and Unfeeling and Lexi's Prayer Rope side project. But everybody listen to Prayer Rope too, or see Prayer Rope live because she's incredible. Absolutely my favorite harsh noise artist at the moment.
Awesome.
And actually, I have Prayer Rope on my phone because she gave me this sticker so
Nice.
I could tell my phone apart from all the other black phones.
Yeah.
All right. I'm sorry. Now we're really going over. I figured I would let it. We could let it go over because we kind of restarted late because of the technical issues. But
yeah. No. Yeah. Well, that's
bleeding people anyway.
Not too much, but yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Well. Yeah. Everybody in chat, you guys, thanks for hanging out with us tonight, and I'll catch you guys soon. And Derek, yeah, thank you, and best of luck to you on all of these endeavors that you're juggling right now.
Thank you so much. Oh, and before we call, I gotta say thank you for doing this, not just this episode, but for doing This Is Darkness at all, but also then expanding it and bringing it to the web and doing interviews and everything. Because unfortunately, sometimes I don't always catch it because I don't always catch the promos about it. But it's been a really good thing that's helped when people. When we've all been stuck at home, and now we're able to go out again, but, it's not, everything's not back to normal.
Yeah.
And this is still a helpful thing. And a lot of us are, shut-ins and recluses and stuff like that. Robert, Lee, and that was Robert Apocryphos that I was talking about,
yeah.
not Gelbert. There's nothing wrong with that. I am a recluse, half the time, and then the other half the time I'm like, let's go party.
Yeah, well, thanks a lot, man. I appreciate the kind words.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yes, keep doing it. Thank you very much.
All right, guys, everyone have a good night. Peace.
Me too.